Salvete, discipuli! Today we will continue the story Tres Filiae. The Emperor Theodosius is about to experience a little bit of a crisis, and he's going to need some help. Luckily, of course, his eldest daughter has already told him that she loves him more than she loves herself, so when he writes to his daughter to get help, he expects good news. Will he get it? Okay, so we resume the story after the emperor has asked all three daughters, "How much do you love me?" The first daughter has said, "I love you more than I love myself." The second daughter said, "I love you as much as I love myself." The third daughter said, "I love you as much as you are worth, no more, no less." And he has married them off accordingly to a king, a duke, and a count because of his belief that these three answers were good and not good in descending order. And so, we pick up the action. Accidit cito posthaec, quod imperator bellum contra regum Aegypti habebat. It happened quickly after these, now you understand these things, okay, that the emperor had a war against the king of Egypt. Now keep in mind, again, there was no king of Egypt in the time of Emperor Theodosius. Theodosius was the emperor of the province of Egypt, okay? So it's clear that this is, like I said in the introduction, a story of Eastern origin that has been given Roman names and contexts, but sometimes they don't always completely fit. Now, one thing I would like to draw your attention to, it happened that something happened, okay? Quod would never have been used in the classical period as a conjunctive like this, okay? So like it happened that something happened. Rex vero imperatorem de imperio fugabat, unde bonum refugii habere non poterat. Verily. Okay, so now the word vero means like verily. It doesn't really mean very much. I mean, sometimes like a writer will throw this in as like really or indeed, something like that. So the king put the emperor to flight out of the empire. Unde, from where, bonum refugii, goodness of refuge, he was not able to have. Non poterat habere, not able to have. Okay, so what's a little weird about this is we are to imagine that somehow the emperor of the entire Roman Empire was in a battle with the king of Egypt, which didn't exist, and somehow at the end of this battle, he's been put to flight out of his empire. I mean, where is he? Is he like down in the Sudan or something? This makes no sense. We just got to roll with it, okay? This is more of a parable than anything, okay? What the story is really going to evolve into being is the lesson of the fact that his belief about what those answers from his daughters meant aren't actually going to translate into the help that he thinks he's going to get from them. So we have to set up the story. Okay, he needs help. He's now outside his empire. He needs help. If somebody will just give him a little help, you know, he'll be back in his empire and he'll be fine. Scripsit litteras annulo suo signatas ad primam filiam suam, quae dixit se patrem suum plusquam se ipsam deligere. He wrote, what did he write? Letters. Now, the word littera refers to like a letter. I'm talking of like A, B, and C are letters, okay? But in the plural, litteras is used, even in the classical period, by the way, as a synonym of the singular noun epistula, okay? So really, even though it says letters, we are to understand he wrote a letter, okay? He wrote a letter to his first daughter, okay? Ad primam filiam suam. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about this adjective suam that's being translated as his. But notice something else, by the way. He wrote a letter to her. This, in the classical period, this would have been done with dative, okay? In the medieval period, dative is replaced, except in Romanian, where it is preserved, it's replaced by the preposition ad, which would have been just always for motion. So you go ad urbem, you go to a city. You would never give something ad someone, but guess what? Today in Spanish you do, okay? You use that preposition just without the D. A in Spanish is both to a place and also give something to a person. These letters, understood letter, are annulo suo signatas, signed with his ring, meaning he has imprinted his signet ring into like a wax seal. So this first daughter, she knows this really did come from her father. To his first daughter, quae dixit, who said. Now we have an indirect statement construction, okay? We're going to add the word that, okay? Who said that she loved her father more than herself, okay? So just be aware what the Latin literally says is who said herself, say, her father, more than she herself to love, okay? So that's how an indirect statement works, okay? We convert it back into understandable English by adding the word that, turning the infinitive into a real verb, and then even though there's a bunch of accusatives, some of them are in fact the subjects of the verb, so to speak. So the one who said that she loved her father more than herself. Okay, so let's take a moment because the previous sentence included several examples of the possessive adjective, his, her, or their. Let's review exactly how this is used. Okay, so suus is his, her, or their when you're governing a masculine, sua for feminine, and suum for a neuter. Eius means of him or of her, and it can sometimes also be translated as his or her. So let's look at some examples and learn exactly how this works. Caecilius filium suum vidit. Caecilius saw his son. Okay? The point here is filium suum here is Quintus. Okay? You use suum when the his is referring to the subject. Okay? Caecilius is the subject of the verb vidit. Caecilius saw. What did Caecilius see? He saw his son. So when he saw his own son, you use suum. Now, here's what's interesting. Suum is an adjective that goes with the noun. Okay, it's an adjective. So the same word suum would be translated as her if the subject is feminine. Okay, so Metella filium suum vidit. Metella saw her son. Okay, so again, suum would be translated as his if it's Caecilius who saw, and her if it's Metella. Caecilius et Metella villam suam intrant. Caecilius and Metella enter their house. Okay, so it's there simply because this is plural. Okay, Metella and Caecilius. Okay, that's plural. That's why it's there. But notice that this adjective, suam, this is singular. It's singular because it's an adjective going with villam. Okay? Caecilius cares for his slaves. Caecilius servos suos curat. Okay? So again, this is plural. Look, suos, that's accusative plural. Why is it accusative plural? Well, because it's going with servos. That's also accusative plural. But the translation here in the English, his is singular because it's referring to Caecilius. Now, when would you use eius? Caecilius entered his friend's house and saw his slave. Now, the point here is, it's not Caecilius's house and it's not Caecilius's slave. Okay? That is when you're going to use eius. Eius means his when you're talking about somebody else's his. Okay? So, we have sui here, okay, because it is his friend, okay? It's Caecilius's friend. Caecilius entered the house amici sui, of his friend. And what did he see there? Servum eius, okay? So again, this is eius because it's referring to the friend, okay, of his friend. We continue the story. Rogavit ut ei succurreret in sua necessitate, eo quod de imperio expulsus erat. He asked that she may help him in his necessity, in that he had been expelled from the empire. Okay? So, we have a nice classical thing here, ut clause, that's nice and classical. We've already seen this writer has used quod instead of ut, but sometimes this writer remembers how to keep things classical. He asked that she may help him in his necessity. Remember, his necessity, eo, okay, literally in that. He has been expelled from the empire. So, the daughter got a letter explaining this whole thing. Filia, cum has litteras eius legisset, vero suo regi, casum primo narrabat. The daughter, when she had read his letter, she was telling first the situation, okay, narrabat, she was telling. Primo is just an adverb meaning first. Casum is the situation. She was telling first the situation, vero suo regi, to her husband, the king. Remember, the eldest daughter was married off to a king. So, culturally, by the way, what can we deduce from this? We can deduce that it was not considered unusual for a woman to know how to read. Okay? If it was like in this culture, women never knew how to read, this sentence we're looking at right now would make no sense. People would say, what is this? This can't be happening. Women don't know how to read. Well, what this proves is, yes, they do. Okay? Women totally do know how to read, and that's why this story makes sense. Ait rex, bonum est, ut succurramus ei in hac sua magna necessitate. So, what is the king's response to learning that the emperor, who in fact gave his first daughter to him as a wife, what's his response? The king said, bonum est, it is good, ut succurramus ei, that we help him in this, his great necessity. Okay, so the king is very interested in helping. Okay, so theoretically, the king's going to do what? Here's what he's going to do. Colligam exercitum meum et cum toto posse meo adiuvabo eum. I will collect my army. Okay, this is a future tense verb right here. Remember that the future tense endings on a third and fourth declension are am, eis, et, amos, etis, ent. Okay, so the am is I will do something. Down here we have the other future tense. On a first and second conjugation verb, we have bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitis, bunt endings. Okay, so bo means I will do something on one of those verbs. Okay, I will collect my army, and with all my power, I will help him. Okay, so if this happens, by the way, the emperor is going to be saved. Okay, so the husband, the king, I will collect my army and I will help him. What is her response to that? Ait illa istud non potest fieri sine magnis expensis. She said, that is not able to happen. Okay, fieri is the verb to happen. This is the infinitive of it. It is a deponent verb, kind of like, it's very irregular. Fieri, to happen, without great expenses. Now, that is true, by the way. I mean, you can't collect like a great army and go help the emperor without great expenses. Why is she not wanting to do this? Because it's expensive? Well, here's the thing. She has become very accustomed to the wonderful lifestyle she has as the queen of whatever kingdom this is, and she's wondering, well, if we spend all that money, are we still going to have all the fine things? And so this is not able to happen without great expenses. Here's what she says she might like to do. Sufficit quod ei concedatis, quam diu est extra imperium suum, quinque milites qui ei associentur. It is sufficient that you concede to him, for as long as he is outside his empire, 5 soldiers who might be assigned with him or to him. Okay? Now, by the way, I'm not expecting you to understand or learn all the grammar of this. As we are going through the story, there are things we concentrate on, and there are other things we are just experiencing so that we kind of enjoy the story. Okay, so this sentence here, just kind of follow along for the point of the plot. So what she's saying is, we're going to send 5 soldiers. Now, this is the weird part. This is the weird part. How are they going to send these 5 soldiers to wherever he is? Why can't they get him back? If you have the ability, first of all, how did the emperor even send his letter? Okay, if the emperor could have sent a letter to his daughter, why couldn't he have just gone along with the letter and gotten to safety? Okay, again, the story makes no sense. Okay, it's a parable about whether or not these daughters' answers are going to actually have any relationship with what they said. And what we've learned is the one that said, I love you more than I love myself, wow, is she not helping her father? Et sic factum est, and thus it was done. Filia patri rescripsit, alium auxilium ab ea habere non posse. Okay, this is another indirect statement. The daughter wrote back to her father. So scripsit means wrote. Rescripsit, okay, when you add the re to a verb, it can mean one of 2 things. It can mean to do something again, or it can mean to do something in return or back. Okay, she wrote back to her father, and here's the substance of what she wrote back to her father. So while it literally says, any help from her to have not to be possible, what this means is she wrote back to her father that he was not able to have any help from her. Okay, that's an indirect statement. Here's the only help that he will get from her. Nisi quinque milites de sumptibus regis in societate sua. Except 5 soldiers, de sumptibus regis, out of the resources of the king, okay, genitive singular, of the king, in his company. So, the emperor gets her response. Imperator, cum hoc audisset, contristatus est valde et infra se dicebat. The emperor, when he had heard this, Isn't it interesting? It doesn't say when he had read this. Okay. Does this imply that somebody read the letter to him? Does it even imply that he doesn't know how to read and write himself? Maybe he was just dictating the letters. Anyway, he was very saddened and was saying, infra se literally means within himself. But, you know, in English, we don't say, oh, yeah, I was speaking within myself. No, in English, we say I was speaking to myself. Okay? And so you feel free to turn that into good English. Heu mihi, tota spes mea erat in seniore filia mea. Woe is me. Literally, woe to me. Okay, but that's not what we say in English. We say, woe is me. My whole hope, tota spes mea, was in my eldest daughter. Eo quod dixit, quod plus me delixit quam se ipsam, et propter hoc ad magnam dignitatem ipsam promovi. In as much as she said. Okay, so eo again, that in that, because, okay, altogether, in as much as she said. And by the way, this is an English word, okay? I can remember from previous years, people like, students have looked at that and they go, what, is that really a word? It is. Google it, okay? In as much as is kind of like in that or because of which, something like that. In as much as she said that she loved me more than herself, meaning that she loved me more than she loved herself. Et propter hoc, on account of this, what did I do? I promoted her, ipsam, her herself. What did I promote her to? Ad magnam dignitatem, to great dignity.